joined by Dr. Alex Del Carmen, who is Executive Director of the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice and Strategic Studies at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, Texas. And thank you for being with us tonight, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
All right. First of all here, I've heard at least one theory propounded that there is now a spate of explosions because the bomber feels that authorities are closing in on him. And obviously that's merely speculation, but in what would appear to be an acceleration of this person's activities, your thoughts about what might be at work here in that person's mind?
Yeah, I would put it a little differently. I think that instead of saying that, there are all these explosions taking place because, somehow law enforcement is zeroing in on the suspect. I think that a better way to say it perhaps would be that, he's becoming very egotistical and he's becoming very confident. And as a result of that, he's likely looking at it from the standpoint of, I really don't really care to sort of be in some ways, undisciplined. Because I know that I'm in control. I'm making all these people go from one area to another, and he keeps on making them guess as to where the next attack is going to be. So he's playing, he's playing that chess game, but he's in control, and that's what matters to this guy. Is he wants to be in control.
It certainly doesn't seem to be ideology. There doesn't seem to be any constant thread here of the targets. Granted, Austin, like many university towns, is considerably more liberal than the surrounding territory, but there hasn't been necessarily any rhyme or reason to the targets involved here. So it doesn't sound like your classic motivated terrorist in that regard. It sounds like somebody who just wants to blow things up.
Maybe, but at the same time, also keep in mind that sometimes we just don't know what we don't know, right? So in so many ways, we're really unaware of what this guy's true motive is. We don't know if this is a racial issue, if this is just a matter of him targeting people in a certain area of town because it's convenient to him, because he can blend in. We really don't know. I assume, and I speculate just based on previous experiences. For instance, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and various instances where we've had serial bombers in the U.S., that this guy probably has an ideology that we will likely get to see it come out at some point. But, I thought it was going to be, his attacks were going to be, they were going to have some more space between them, more time, more of a significant timeline. But it seems to me that he's getting more and more aggressive, which may or may not end up in him releasing his manifesto, so to speak, at some point.
Yeah, of course, with the Unabomber, we did wind up with a very detailed manifesto, so detailed, in fact, of course, that it undid Ted Kaczynski because his brother recognized his writings, and that's what led to his ultimate arrests. Again, I'm not aware of any common thread, though, that runs through any of the people and or places targeted ethnically, in terms of neighborhoods, companies, anything of that nature. I mean, if there's a thread there, I guess I'm missing it.
Well, but we also don't know what things law enforcement know at this point, right? So we don't know, for instance, how the bomb was put together. We don't know what type of packaging was used. We don't know, if there are any video footage of something that remotely resembles this person dropping the bombs. I mean, we don't know any of that. So at this point, from our perspective, we may not be able to see a pattern or an ideology, but law enforcement may in fact know, and I'm sure they do. They know a lot more than what they're letting us understand at this point.
Yeah. Now, there was, I believe, and there have been a lot of stories that have come out tonight, followed by changes, clarifications, for corrections from the authorities. But at one time, there was word of a device found intact. And I believe that the latest information is that was not believed to be connected to the other bombings, but I must confess, in the welter of information coming at me, I'm not sure where we stand as regards an unexploded device.
Right, and so right now we don't know part of that, whether or not that's actually true or not. What we do know, however, is that there's been some speculation to the extent that there was a live device that was actually seized by law enforcement. And I tell you, if that is in fact true, this will be a major breakthrough in the investigation, because that would allow for law enforcement to see things in the device that they perhaps were not able to see once the device has been detonated. So my hope in some ways is that they did find something that they're able to preserve, contain, and investigate. But it's hard to say right now. I mean, all the information, as you pointed out, it's been fluid, and there are a lot of emotions in Austin right now as to what the next target is going to be. And I cannot imagine the terror and the panic that people are experiencing right now when they receive a package and they're about to open it, because we just simply don't know if that's going to be the next bomb.
1-866-50-JIMBO, our number, 1-866-505-4626. Dr. Alex Del Carmen, our guest, is Executive Director of the School of Criminology, Criminal Justice, and Strategic Studies at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, Texas. And we are updating you on the bombings that have occurred in and around Austin, Texas. Let's talk to Helene in Inglewood, Florida. Hello, Helene.
Oh, good evening, gentlemen. Alex, interesting that you bring up the aspect of control, because that's usually the mechanism with people that commit crimes as a sexual predator or sexual assault. What control this individual would want to have on a just kind of random level. I know you mentioned the things of target. I know the 75-year-old woman was Mexican. The other boxes, I believe, were placed at African-American people's homes, although they say this last incident, maybe before this last one, that it was done to maybe throw that consistent pattern off, directed at Mexican or Latino or black people. What do you think, Alex?
Well, it's hard to say right now. I mean, what we do know is that, for the most part, people that fit this type of typology or profile are people that are very controlling. They're also incredibly smart. They do follow an ideology, and they're very disciplined. Ted Kaczynski was the prototype of this type of individual, and I think here we may have something like that. I'm not sure to what extent this person fits the profile of Kaczynski entirely, but I think that it's safe to say that this person likely has some of those features and qualities. As far as the package that was triggered by these two individuals walking down, in a particular neighborhood, I think that may have been, some sort of a diversion from the typical MO that this person has had. And I say that because these folks like to play with law enforcement. This guy is playing a game, and the game that he's playing is, I'm going to pop over here, I'm going to show up over there, I'm going to show up in Schertz, Texas, I'm going to send a package from Austin to Austin so that y'all don't know where the package is coming from. So this game that he's playing seems to have taken over his ideology. And so it's really not, at this point, I don't think anybody's certain on what that ideology is, but typically these folks do carry some sort of an ideological message, which we have yet to see in this case.
Yeah, and of course, a substantial portion of the Austin, Texas population would be a minority population. So again, it's tough to narrow this down in that regard. More to come. 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. Dr. Alex Del Carmen of Tarleton State University, our guest, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to the Jimbo Hannon Show at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. We're talking with Dr. Alex Del Carmen, who's Executive Director of the School of Criminology, Criminal Justice, and Strategic Studies at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth. And we are talking about the Austin package bombings, and we'll also get to the latest school shooting here in just a moment. Right now, a call from David in Creston, Iowa. Good evening, David.
Good evening, Tim, and to your guest also. If you're going to catch a crook, you've got to think like one. But don't take that personally against me, okay? But I think the public has got to watch out. And I want to ask your guest there. This idiot that's doing this, he might get a little creative. He could leave a backpack on a bus, and somebody picks it up, and boom, boom. he could show up anywhere. And I think there are just tell the entire public if they see anything. It doesn't have to be just a package. It could be anything, a purse, a backpack. You know, I think he's going to start getting a little more creative if he is completely off his rocker.
All right, let's talk about that. In general, Alex, do people like this tend to follow a rigid method of operation, or does their MO vary to get, as you and David and Creston have noted, creative?
Well, you know, what we've seen in the past is we've seen that they like to stick to what works, right? So the idea is if they have this mechanism of putting together this bomb and being able to make it work, they want to stick to what they already know best. Having said that, I mean, nothing prohibits, and David makes a good point. I mean, nothing prohibits, you know, this person, this suspect from basically engaging in other types of attacks or using other mechanisms. But in the past, what we have seen is that they're highly disciplined. They sort of have their own makeshift lab where they basically put together the bombs. They bottle the materials because they've thought this through for months, maybe sometimes years. And what they're doing is they're simply putting this together and trying to figure out who their next target is. So they're not going to necessarily be paying attention to whether it's a box or a backpack as much as, you know, what they're going to do next so that they can keep, make law enforcement guess what his next move is going to be.
1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. And we do have another story that we also are going to include in the mix. This would probably have been the lead item, actually, for a while before the most recent bombings. But another school shooting has happened, this time at a Maryland high school in St. Mary's County. That's one of the southeastern suburbs of the outer suburbs of the nation's capital. And Omar Jimenez has this report.
Terrifying moments at a Maryland high school just minutes before classes started Tuesday.
This is something that we train, practice, in a reality we hope would never come to fruition. It is our worst nightmare.
Authorities say 17-year-old Austin Wyatt Rollins, a student, opened fire with a handgun at Great Mills High School. 2 students were shot.
The 14-year-old male student was transported to MedStar St. Mary's Hospital, is in stable condition there. The 16-year-old female student was transported to PG shock trauma, and she is in ICU with life-threatening critical injuries.
The shooter is now dead, though it's unclear if he took his own life or was shot by a school resource officer.
As to whether or not the shooter committed suicide, that is a potential.
For several tense hours after the shooting, details were sparse.
I'm in my math class right now when it happened. And we've been on lockdown for about 30 minutes or so.
As frantic parents were told to go to a nearby school.
Got a call from my 15-year-old son that goes to Great Mills High School, and he said, "Mom, come and get me. Somebody just got shot."
Now the FBI and ATF are on the scene, helping to piece together exactly what happened and why.
There is an indication that a prior relationship existed between the shooter and the female victim, and if it was part of the motive for this shooting.
In St. Mary's County, Maryland, I'm Omar Jimenez reporting.
All right, Alex Del Carmen, another case of a school shooting here. Again, most of the details have been sketchy as to regards security procedures at this particular school. Obviously, there was a school resource officer on hand, so that tells us something. But again, I'm wondering, does media coverage generate copycats? Because those of us in the media can't sweep this sort of thing under the rug.
Right. So I think, you bring up a great point, which is, at what point do you actually stop the coverage and then, in some ways harm, society by enhancing the idea or the visibility of the bad guy, right? So that others get inspired. But I think, look, at the end of the day, somebody that is inspired to go out and kill innocent people from a radio show or from a TV show, is probably getting inspired. Is going to get inspired to do that with any other means that they have access to, right? So I mean, in that sense, I give the media a pass. Obviously, we don't want to glamorize the person. We don't want to be discussing the person's profile to the extent that, we become obsessed with the shooter. I think we carry the responsibility of talking about the victims. We carry the responsibility of talking about security issues. But no, I don't think that this is going to necessarily invite other people to commit the same crime. They're going to already have that in the back of their minds and perhaps carry it out regardless of what you say.
Yeah. So in days gone by, it might have been possible to, quote, suppress such a thing. But in this day of social media, even if the media conspired to say, well, we don't want to give him publicity, the publicity would be out there just by tweets and other forms of social media. More to come. Back in a moment. Welcome back to the Jim Bohannon Show, 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626, and glad to have you on the program this evening. Dr. Alex Del Carmen joins us from Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, Texas. We're looking at two events that we wish we didn't have to tell you about: the continued bombings in Austin, Texas, and surrounding areas, and a Maryland school shooting southeast of the nation's capital. We have a call from Joey in Columbia, South Carolina. Hello, Joey.
Hey, Jimbo, Doctor, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay, hey, good, very, very clear. Yeah, I was just wondering if you could tell us what goes, like, in an urgent investigation, more of the bombing. When would they release information to the public to help, and why would they not release it? Maybe that it would hurt the investigation.
Right, that's actually a great question. In terms of when authorities make that decision is, at this point, what they want to do is they want to be able to catch the individual criminal themselves. So the idea is that if they release any kind of information to the public, it's going to make this person more aware of the fact that that authorities know who this person is. It's going to make that person want to flee. They may not have a grid or knowledge as to the exact area where this person may be operating. And so if they alert the public, this person may actually hide for a few months or a few years, and they may never be able to catch that individual. So I think what they're probably waiting for is waiting at the right time, at the right moment, when they may have an idea of where this person lives, may have an idea of where this person may be, and then at that point they want this person to come out. And so by virtue of that, they release it to the public, the person automatically comes out, and authorities either apprehend or kill the person at the scene. And so my guess is that this is something that always works for law enforcement, so that they can control the tempo, they can control the area where this happens, and they can also ensure the protection of the public. That's something that always falls very much within the scope of law enforcement. They want to make sure they don't make this person so desperate that he begins to detonate bombs all throughout the city, perhaps all throughout the state. So those are the factors that they think about when they contemplate whether or not the information should be released.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Joy. Appreciate your thoughts there. 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. Let's assume that they found an intact device. Other than maybe fingerprints or partial fingerprints, what could the authorities learn from such a device if, in fact, they found one?
So, for instance, they could actually find out, what products were utilized to arm the bomb, right? So they're going to know whether or not these items were bought online, whether or not they were bought overseas, if they, in fact, were bought at the local, Lowe's or the local, Home Depot store. They're also going to know how this whole device was armed. They're going to understand the level of sophistication of the bomber as it relates to, former military training or paramilitary training. By text me. So
Sir. Right.
about where they each other. That is a people first to that church should face other. So the everybody to the school to do what people and in that how the in school says you're right. Division
Come back. Carmen. Work. Case. School. The continue. Missouri.
And they call their member by fund and he had God was going to simply he's he just really this is first first this box man the bring it is
Made per so in school well say
in the or always be more quickly somebody update then flash do it have an individual
back take about case are feeling coming we have seen even link but use the
I mean those are very cat criminal are fully killed the next and that to do the rest. Well,
Yeah. Event probably expect there is that out have a
does not tell the air will create some have how problem lot and area right or first person in a
see also are you are some
I mean, brother is go without like how that a lot that first they have in that person
attention the single that is there that he
well you if you're the was again you know is that so it's